Hi everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski are taking a look at one of the major prep races for the Kentucky Oaks being run on Saturday at Gulfstream Park on their Florida Derby undercard. Race 11 is the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks, going the mile and a 16th distance on the dirt for 3-year-old fillies. With that short stretch run at Gulfstream Park, something to take note of when you're handicapping this race, we'll throw up the field of 9 runners signed on for this Gulfstream Park Oaks, Craig, and an intriguing name in this lineup, maybe somewhat unexpected. The number 4, Ways and Means, a horse that we have not seen on the racetrack in quite some time, but certainly had some buzz and hype around her last year during the summer of her 2-year-old season at Saratoga, winning her debut impressively and finishing second in the spinaway. She's coming off the long layoff, trying 2 turns for the first time.
It's going to be tough. I imagine she will go off favored based on all the hype we saw for her over at Saratoga this year, that big maiden win, the good stakes effort. But this is not an easy field to come back and make a return into.
Let's take a look at the pace projector to get a sense of where that morning line favorite, the number 4, Ways and Means, could be placed in the early stages of this race. And while she does possess plenty of early speed, Craig, which we saw in her sprint races, last year they didn't ride her like a horse that really needed to be in front. They took her off the pace, I think, intentionally so in a few races. So wouldn't be a surprise if they try to rate her again, especially trying to get this 2-turn distance for the first time. And there is plenty of other speed in this race that I think is likely to go forward, especially the number 2, Do Gooder, who was contesting a very fast pace last time in her maiden race. We've also seen speed from horses like the number 8, Fiona's Magic, and even the number 5 and 6, Into Champagne and Gunsong, have tactical speed as well.
This one's a bit tricky. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out, but I would say the 2 is where I do expect the 2 Do Gooder to be in front. In addition to that last race when she broke her maiden in the slop, even her maiden race in a 7-furlong race was very fast early. In fact, all the fractions in both of her races are red. So we do expect her to be clear up front.
Yeah, no fast pace flag indicated here, so not expecting an extremely fast pace. And normally, with a race that has this much speed in it, you might expect them to come apart a little bit, but sometimes connections of these 3-year-old fillies can be a little bit cautious with how fast they go on the early stages of a race when a lot of them are trying the distance for the first time. Let's go through this field in post position order, Craig. And a horse that I don't think we have to have too many questions about her getting the distance is the number 1, Power Squeeze. And we'll take a look at her most recent race when she was a winner of the Suncoast, going off at 3-1 this day, getting a good ride from Daniel Centeno. You can see her squeezing through on the inside here in upper stretch. Also in this race is a horse, America's Vow, the 3rd place finisher on this day. She's back in this field, though will be a long shot. But Power Squeeze is the one that you want to focus on in this race. And this was her trying the 2 turns for the second time in her career. She had actually broken her maiden going 2 turns at Delaware, had earned a big speed figure 2 back in that cash run, going the 1-turn mile over this Gulfstream Park Oval. And with her, Craig, given the way that she finishes her races, the mile and the 16th, not supposed to be any problem at all.
No, not at all. I would say she is the one filly in this field that has no question marks about the distance. And some may be concerned about that lowest speed figure we see last time. But personally, I think that's strictly a function of the pace. There was just absolutely no pace on that day. You see the blue coated fractions. And I think that 1-turn mile 101 more represents her ability. And I expect her to even improve off of that in this spot.
Yeah, any speed that develops up front would certainly help the cause of the number 1, Power Squeeze. The number 2 in this race is Do Gooder, as she tries winners for the first time after breaking her maiden most recently at Gulfstream Park, going the 1-turn mile distance, and overcame some adversity that day in the form of Mother Nature as she was competing over a sloppy sealed track and in the middle of what appeared to be a driving rainstorm. You could barely even see her on the replay or any of the horses, just given how hard it was coming down and how dark it had gotten at Gulfstream Park for the running of that race. Though based on the fractions, Craig, it does appear that they were going pretty quickly early. The entire field was slowing down in the late stages, but at least you do know that this is a horse who can survive a fast pace.
Yes, and she also, we assume, showed the ability to rate a little bit, as it's not like she was on the lead the whole way according to the GPS. I assume that's where they got the calls from, because as you know, you just couldn't see her. And she had speed figures to be competitive in this field. It's a dangerous early speed, and it's a race where we talked about the configuration at Gulfstream. There's a short run into the first turn. They use an alternate finish line to try to offset that a bit. but obviously that makes the stretch shorter. So she could be dangerous on that front end.
Yeah, she is going out for the connections of Arcangelo, last year's Belmont and Travers winner, trainer Jenna Antonucci, and jockey Javier Castellano. So we'll see if they can have some more graded stake success with the number 2, Do Gooder. The number 3, Neom City, we'll skip over her. She's going to be a big price in this race, one that doesn't really seem to have the class or speed figure credentials coming in. The number 4 is Ways and Means, that morning line favorite. We'll take a look at her last race when she was a narrow loser of the Spinaway at a very short price, going off at 2-5 on this occasion. And reportedly, she did come out of this race with an injury, so maybe that is the excuse for her not winning over what was a field that she was probably supposed to handle. Brightwork, the eventual winner of this race, was in very good form last summer, but the runbacks from this Spinaway overall have not been stellar. Not exactly a race that has been bolstered in the ensuing months. That said, Ways and Means was extremely impressive in her career debut. There was a lot of hype around her that day. She had trained very forwardly coming into that race, and she won, drawing off by nearly 13 lengths under wraps. Flavien Prat never asked her for anything at any point in that race. So take that 97 time Formula speed figure with a grain of salt. It felt like a horse that arguably could have run faster on the day. However, Craig, coming off the long layoff, trying 2 turns for the first time in graded stakes company, there are a lot of hurdles for this filly to overcome, as talented as she may be.
There are a lot of questions. As you note, her speed figures are good. They came in August and September of her 2-year-old season, and they would fit with this field right now if they had happened a month ago. The question is, can she reproduce them first time off the layoff and even improve as a maturing 3-year-old? I have a lot of questions about that, particularly when she's stretching out the 2 turns, something she's never tried before. I tried to look up stats for Chad Brown in Formulator to see what it looked like when he does this move, and he doesn't do it. So there is really nothing to go on with a 3-year-old this time of year. So short price, she's not going to be for me. I won't be surprised if she wins, but I just don't see her offering any value at all.
Yeah, it is a little uncharacteristic for the barn, I think, given how talented she is and the fact that she appears to be trading very well coming back off the layoff. You've got to take a shot, see if she can vault herself into that Kentucky Oaks picture, but it's not going to be easy. She'll have to really show her talent on Saturday if she's going to overcome this obstacle. Let's take a look at the Devona Dale Stakes, which was the local prep for the Gulfstream Park Oaks. We've got a couple of horses coming out of here. The winner, Fiona's Magic, who caused a minor upset, winning at 9-1 this day, as well as Into Champagne, who takes a good run at her on the stretch. Seems like she might get there in mid-stretch, but hangs a little bit in the late stages, and Fiona's Magic able to battle back for the victory. The 3rd place finisher in this race, Leslie's Rose, who's not back in here, arguably a little unlucky. She was the big favorite who sort of got stymied at the altar course in upper stretch. So maybe that helped these 2 horses achieve those exact placings. As for Fiona's Magic, Craig, she's stretching out to the 2 turns for the first time. Distance, probably the big question for her, but from a speed figure standpoint and consistency standpoint, you really can't knock her form.
No, you can't. She's run good speed figures. She fits in this field, but you mentioned the distance at the outset of this video, and I think that's a real concern for Fiona's Magic. It makes sense that they give her a shot here, but she had everything go her own way in that 1-turn mile, was probably a little bit lucky to win, as you noted, and I just think there's real concerns about her getting the distance, particularly with the presence of a horse like Do Gooder in here.
Yeah, I've got concerns about her going 2 turns as well, but I do respect her talent and class. The number 5 into Champagne, who was the other horse coming out of that Devona Dale. I kind of felt like she was supposed to win that race, Craig. She did travel about 2 to 3 wide around the track, but she got there in mid-stretch. We saw it on the replay. Looked like she was going to forge past Fiona's Magic, and she just didn't in the late stages. That was her first time trying a distance beyond 6 furlongs, and she's one where I wonder if the added distance really helps her either.
I have similar concerns about the distance. As you said, she had every reason to go by last time. She lost a little ground on the turn, but I still thought it was a very good trip, and she just couldn't get it done. And in fact, Fiona's Magic was pulling away a little bit at the end. So distance concerns, the speed figures fit, but I do prefer others.
I think an intriguing horse in this race is the number 6 Gunsong. We'll take a look at her most recent victory against Optional Claiming Allowance Company, going the 1 turn mile at Gulfstream. And she was beating a highly touted Chad Brown horse this day in Catherine Wheel, who went off as basically the co-favorite with Gunsong. She easily put away that foe and is drawing off nicely to the wire, like a horse that we're not really supposed to question the stretch out in distance. She's by that versatile sire Gunrunner, gets a lot of class on the dam side of her pedigree, and she has just been improving in her last 3 starts, really ever since Mark Hennig put the blinkers on 2 back. She gave Leslie's Rose all that she could handle in that allowance race. That was the horse that came back and did run competitively in the Devona Dale, and it felt like Gunsong took yet another step forward last time. If she gets the 2 turns, she could be tough to beat in this race.
Her speed figure certainly says she fits. I don't have as many questions about the distance for her. The one concern I have is that red flag that you see on the race rating, saying that it was a speed favoring track. When I look at the runbacks for the race, I think the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place finishers have all come back. None have been particularly impressive, not running very well, but it's not like their speed figures cratered too badly. So if she can run back to that race, she is definitely a contender.
Yeah, I'm not going to put too much stock in that particular race rating indicator because they run very few dirt races at Gulfstream Park these days. I think there were only 2 other dirt races on that February 9th card. So just a limited sample size that's producing that flag. So I'm not going to put too much stock in it, but definitely if Gunsong repeats that 105 time form US speed figure, she'll be tough in here. We're going to skip over the number 7, America's Vow. We already kind of talked about her with Power Squeeze. She was in that same race. The Suncoast was just no match for that foe. We'll move on to the number 9, Scalable, who rounds out this field. And she's been a short price in most of her recent starts. Somewhat surprisingly, went off the favorite in the Forward Gal last time when she was trying winners for the first time. Was no match for Fiona's Magic, who she faces again here. That was turning back to 7 furlongs. And I think you could argue that Scalable might be a horse that wants a little more ground. She did run respectably when finishing 5th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies last year. Now, you could question how strong that Breeders' Cup race really was, given the low speed figure earned by the winner and everybody else, but at least she's gotten the distance a couple of times, and she's earned speed figures that have at least been consistently in that high 90s range. She just probably needs a slight step forward, Craig.
Yeah, that consistency is actually what gives me a little bit of pause. She hasn't really developed much at all. We can see she's been running 90s in all of her last 4 races. You like to see some moves forward, and it's pretty obvious she's a big fan of the bettors as well, as she seems to take money, particularly in those last 2. They were weaker fields, so she's not for me in here. Maybe the 2 turns will help, but she also hasn't had a lot of speed when she's tried 2 turns, and that could be a concern at Gulfstream as well.
Let's throw up our picks for this Gulfstream Park Oaks, and I think we mostly agree, Keg. We're both taking shots against that favorite, the number 4, Ways and Means. I think you're maybe even a little more against her than I am. I do respect her talent. I just think this is a tough spot for her, and I like the horse that you have on top as well. I put her second, the number 1, Power Squeeze. Just seems like one you can trust to get the distance.
Yeah, she's in top form, and I think she might get overlooked a little bit coming out of that slow race last time. But there were excuses, as I noted, notably the pace. And of all the horses in here, I think she's the one that definitely wants the 2 turns and probably even a little more distance than what we're getting on Saturday. But I do think she'll get some pace from the 2, Do Gooder, a horse who I also think is possible to steal this one.
Yeah, I also like Power Squeeze quite a bit. Didn't need to have the same horse on top as Craig does, so I'll switch them and put Gunsong on top. I like her quite a bit as well. I've been impressed with her last couple of races, and she doesn't strike me as one that's supposed to have trouble getting the mile and the 16th distance, and she should work out a good stalking trip out in the clear. So the number 6, Gunsong for me, the number 1, Power Squeeze for Craig in race 11 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, the grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.